Grace had everything except the one thing money could never buy: her memories. 3 years after waking up alone on a beach on Jeju Island with no name, no family, and no past, she rebuilt her life from nothing, becoming the best accountant at her company. Then doctors shattered her world with devastating news. She had just 6 months to live. A brain tumor, they said. But fate had other plans. In the very same hospital where Grace was undergoing tests, just down the hall was a little boy slowly dying from kidney disease. No donor could be found for his rare blood type. Grace found herself wandering down the hallway until something made her stop outside an open hospital room. Inside, a little boy smiled, waved her over, and asked her to color with him. In that instant, something stirred deep inside her, something her heart remembered, but her mind had forgotten. When she discovered she was the only perfect kidney match, she gave him one of hers without hesitation. She had no idea she was saving the Korean Mafia boss's son, or her own son, the little boy she had lost 3 years earlier. Just when fate finally reunited a broken family, it had one more heartbreaking twist waiting for them. Grab your tissues, Afro-Korean story lovers. This is one emotional journey you'll never forget. Now let's begin. Grace stood in Mr. Kang's office, staring at the promotion letter in her hands. Senior Financial Manager, 3rd promotion in 2 years. You deserve it, Mr. Kang said, beaming from behind his desk. Best accountant this firm has ever had. I don't know where you learned your skills, but we're lucky to have you. She smiled, the expression practiced and easy. Thank you. I really appreciate this. Go home early. Celebrate. You've earned it. Grace left the office at 4 in the afternoon, the spring sunshine warm on her face as she walked through Jeju City. Tourists clustered around street food vendors, the smell of hotitok and tteokbokki filling the air. Families laughed together at outdoor tables. Couples held hands as they browsed souvenir shops. She walked past all of it, promotion letter folded carefully in her bag, and felt nothing but that familiar emptiness. The walk to her apartment took 20 minutes. She'd chosen a place far enough from the office to feel like a real separation between work and life, close enough to the ocean that she could hear the waves at night. The building was modest, paint peeling slightly around the windows, but the rent was fair, and the landlady didn't ask questions about her past. Her apartment was on the 3rd floor. She climbed the stairs slowly, keys already in her hand. The hallway smelled like someone was cooking kimchi jjigae. Her stomach growled, reminding her she'd skipped lunch. Inside, her apartment was small but comfortable. She'd decorated it herself over the past 2 years, making careful choices at second-hand shops and local markets. Soft blue curtains that reminded her of something she couldn't quite remember. A couch she'd found broken and reupholstered with fabric covered in tiny white flowers. Books lined the shelves she'd assembled herself, though she couldn't say if she'd always loved reading or just discovered it after waking up with no past. The spines were worn, pages dog-eared. She'd read each one at least twice. Grace set her bag down on the small dining table, looked around the quiet space, and realized there was no one to call, no one to tell about the promotion, no family to send a message to, no close friends, just pleasant co-workers who knew nothing real about her because she had nothing real to tell them. She pulled out her phone anyway, scrolled through her contacts. Mr. Kang, the landlady, the woman who ran the convenience store downstairs, Halmoni, the old woman who'd saved her life, a few co-workers whose numbers she'd saved after company dinners. Her thumb hovered over Halmoni's name, but the old woman was probably asleep already. And besides, what would she say? I got promoted again at a job I'm good at, for reasons I don't understand, and I came home to an empty apartment to celebrate alone, like I do everything else. She put the phone down. The refrigerator held leftover japchae from 2 days ago, a container of kimchi, 3 eggs, and a half-empty bottle of barley tea. Grace pulled out the japchae and ate it cold, standing at the counter, not bothering with a plate. Through the window above the sink, she could see directly into the apartment building across the narrow alley. A family was eating dinner together. Mother, father, 2 children, who looked about 7 and 9. They were laughing about something, the father gesturing wildly with his chopsticks, making the children giggle. Grace watched them for a long moment, this glimpse into a life that felt impossibly foreign. Then she pulled the curtains closed and finished eating in the semi-darkness. That night, she tried to read but couldn't focus, tried to watch television, but nothing held her interest. She ended up sitting on the couch with the lights off, staring at the wall, touching the locket at her throat. She'd worn it every single day for 3 years, never took it off, not even to shower. The metal was warm from her skin, familiar in a way nothing else was. Grace opened it, studied the 2 faces worn away to shadows by salt water. She'd looked at them 1,000 times, trying to remember, trying to feel something beyond the vague sense that they mattered, that they were important, that somewhere, maybe, someone had loved the person she used to be. Nothing ever came, just the same blank emptiness. She fell asleep on the couch, still dressed, the locket clutched in her hand. The dreams came like they always did. Water, dark and cold, pulling her down, lungs burning, hands reaching for something just out of grasp, screaming that made no sound. She woke gasping at 3 in the morning, heart pounding, the locket's chain tangled around her fingers. Grace got up, splashed cold water on her face, and stared at herself in the bathroom mirror. Who was she? The question never got easier. She went back to sleep on the couch and dreamed of nothing. The next morning, her colleagues had decorated her desk. Colorful paper chains hung from the cubicle walls, taped haphazardly and already starting to droop. Someone had brought in a cake, white frosting with "Congratulations, Grace," written in wobbly blue letters. The exclamation point was sliding down the side. "Surprise," Ji-won from accounting called out when Grace walked in. She was young, enthusiastic, always the first to organize celebrations. Grace laughed, genuinely touched despite her exhaustion. "You didn't have to do all this." "Of course we did," Yoon-so said, appearing with a camera. 3 promotions in 2 years. You're making the rest of us look bad." "Speech, speech," someone called from the back. Grace set down her bag, faced the small crowd of co-workers gathered in the office. They were all smiling at her, these people who knew her as competent, quiet Grace, who never talked about her personal life, but always remembered everyone's birthdays. "There's nothing to say," she started. "I just do my job." 3 promotions in 2 years isn't just doing your job, Mr. Kang said, appearing with an enormous bouquet of flowers, white chrysanthemums and yellow roses, wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine. "You're exceptional, Grace. We're all very proud of you." She took the flowers, the weight of them substantial in her arms. "Thank you, all of you. Really, this means more than you know." They sang happy congratulations, badly and off-key, but with genuine warmth. Cut the cake into uneven pieces. Grace was laughing at something Yoon-so said about the new intern who'd somehow managed to delete an entire quarter's worth of files on his first day when she felt it. Wet warmth on her upper lip. She touched her face automatically. Her fingers came away red. "Grace, your nose," Yoon-so said, her smile fading into concern. "Oh." Grace grabbed a napkin from the table, tilted her head back like she'd seen people do in movies. "Sorry, this is embarrassing. Does this happen often?" Mr. Kang asked, moving closer. "No, never. I'm fine, really. Probably just the excitement." But the blood kept coming. She went through 3 napkins, then 5, then 7. People were staring now, the celebration atmosphere evaporating into worry. "Maybe you should sit down," Ji-won suggested. "I'm okay. I just need..." The room got very bright suddenly, everything edged in white light that hurt to look at. Grace blinked, trying to clear her vision, but the brightness only intensified. "Grace?" Ji-won's voice sounded far away, distorted. The floor tilted sideways. Grace reached for her desk to steady herself, but her hand wouldn't cooperate. Her fingers missed, grabbed air instead of solid surface. Then her body went rigid. She felt it happening like she was watching from outside herself, muscles locking, jaw clenching so hard she thought her teeth might crack. The world spun violently, and then she was falling, the ceiling and floor trading places. She hit the ground hard. Her head bounced off the tile. Someone was screaming, high and terrified. Then the convulsions started. Her body jerked and spasmed, completely beyond her control. She could hear people shouting, felt hands trying to hold her still, but she was trapped inside a body that had become a stranger. Foam filled her mouth. The taste of copper, blood from where she'd bitten her tongue. The world fractured into pieces. Light, dark, sound, silence. Then nothing. She woke to the sterile smell of disinfectant and the rhythmic beep of machines. A hospital room, small and too bright. Afternoon light filtering through thin curtains. Her head felt stuffed with cotton, her mouth dry and tasting of metal. "You're awake." A nurse appeared beside the bed, young with tired eyes. She checked the IV in Grace's arm, adjusted something on the machine. "How are you feeling?" "Confused," Grace managed. Her voice came out like broken glass. "What happened?" "You had a seizure at work. Your co-workers brought you in. You've been unconscious for about 6 hours. The doctor will be here soon to explain everything." 6 hours. Grace tried to process that, tried to remember anything after the nosebleed, but there was just blank space. "Can I have some water?" The nurse poured a cup from the pitcher on the side table, helped Grace sit up enough to drink. Every muscle in her body ached like she'd been hit by a truck. The doctor arrived 20 minutes later. Dr. Park was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a serious mouth. She wore her hair pulled back in a tight bun, a few strands of grey visible at her temples. She pulled up a chair beside Grace's bed, tablet in hand. "Miss Grace, I'm Dr. Park. I'm a neurologist here at Jeju General. We ran some scans while you were unconscious. I need to show you something." She turned the tablet screen toward Grace. The image showed grey and white swirls, shadows and light forming patterns Grace didn't understand at first. "This is your brain," Dr. Park said quietly, pointing with one finger. "And this dark area here, this is a tumor." Grace stared at the mass on the screen. It looked bigger than it should, more real than anything had felt in years. A dark blob pressing against delicate tissue, taking up space where it didn't belong. "Can you remove it?" Dr. Park's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. Pity, maybe. The tumor is located at the brainstem. Operating would be extremely dangerous, almost certainly fatal. The brainstem controls your breathing, your heart rate, all your basic functions. Any surgical intervention would likely cause more harm than good. "I'm very sorry." The words settled over Grace like a blanket, heavy and suffocating. She should feel afraid, she thought, panicked, angry, something. Instead, she just felt tired, and strangely, almost relieved. At least now she knew. At least the emptiness had an explanation, an end point. "How long do I have?" Dr. Park set the tablet down, folded her hands in her lap. "That's difficult to say with certainty. Based on the size and location, I'd estimate 6 months, perhaps a year if you're fortunate. But the seizures will likely increase in frequency, the headaches will worsen, you'll experience cognitive decline, motor skill deterioration. Eventually, the tumor will affect your autonomic functions, your breathing, your heartbeat. Will it hurt? We can manage the pain with medication, keep you comfortable. And if I don't do anything, if I just go home and pretend this isn't happening, then you'll die not knowing exactly when or how. The seizures could happen anywhere, anytime. You could hurt yourself or someone else if you're driving. The decline won't be peaceful. Grace touched the locket at her throat, the metal warm and familiar. "What do I need to do?" "I want to refer you to Seoul National University Hospital. They have better imaging equipment, specialists in this type of tumor who can give you a more accurate prognosis and discuss your options for palliative care." "When?" "As soon as possible. I can make the referral today." Grace looked at the ceiling, the plain white tiles with their little holes that probably had some acoustic purpose. She was going to die. The thought should devastate her, but mostly she just wondered if death would bring back her memories, if she'd die knowing who she'd been. "Okay," she said, "I'll go." Mr. Kang came to visit that evening, bringing flowers and an uncomfortable expression. "Take all the time you need," he said, not quite meeting her eyes. "Your job will be waiting when you're ready." They both knew she'd never be ready. "Thank you for everything," Grace said. "You gave me a chance when I had nothing to show for myself. No references, no history. That meant a lot." "You earned every opportunity," he replied. "You're the best accountant I've ever known, Grace. I hope the doctors in Seoul can help you." After he left, Grace lay in the hospital bed and tried to imagine what dying would feel like. Would it hurt? Would she be afraid at the end? Would anyone be there, Or would she die alone like she'd lived for the past 3 years? Halmoni came the next day, early in the morning before Grace was discharged. The old woman shuffled in with a cloth bag full of dried herbs, their earthy smell filling the small room. "For the pain," she said, setting the bag on the bedside table. "Won't cure you, but it'll help. Brew it into tea, twice a day." "Thank you, Halmoni." The old woman studied her with sharp black eyes that seemed to see everything. "You scared?" Grace considered the question honestly. "No." "Why not?" "I think I've been dead before. This doesn't feel new." Halmoni made a humming sound, neither agreement nor disagreement. "Memory still gone?" "Completely. Maybe it'll come back before the end. Maybe that's why you need to go to Seoul." Grace looked at her. "You think my past is there?" Halmoni shrugged, pulling her cardigan tighter. "Don't know, but the sea brought you here from somewhere. Spit you out on those rocks for a reason. Maybe it's time to find out where you came from." "What if I don't like what I find? What if you do?" Grace didn't have an answer for that. She was discharged that afternoon with a referral letter and a prescription for anti-seizure medication that made her drowsy. Her apartment felt different when she returned, smaller somehow, like it belonged to someone else, someone who'd had a future. She packed a small bag, practical clothes, toiletries, the herbs from Halmoni, her medication, the locket she never took off anyway. She looked around at the life she'd built from nothing and felt a strange detachment, like she was already leaving herself behind. The ferry to Seoul left on a grey morning, the sky heavy with clouds that threatened rain. Grace stood at the railing, watching Jeju disappear into mist and distance. The wind was cold, smelling of salt and fish and diesel fuel. Other passengers huddled inside where it was warm, but Grace stayed outside, letting the wind numb her face. A little girl ran past, chased by her father. "Careful," he called, laughing. "Don't fall overboard." The girl squealed with delight, completely unafraid. Grace watched them play and felt that familiar emptiness expand in her chest. Had anyone ever chased her like that? Had she ever been someone's daughter, someone's joy? She didn't know, would never know. The crossing took 3 hours. By the time Seoul appeared on the horizon, the rain had started. The city rose from the water like something alive, buildings stacked on buildings, reaching for a sky they could never quite touch. Grace had been here before, she knew. Must have been. But it felt foreign, overwhelming, like visiting another planet. The taxi ride from the port to Seoul National University Hospital took 45 minutes through traffic that made her anxious for reasons she couldn't name. The driver tried to make conversation, asking where she was from, what brought her to Seoul. She gave short answers, and eventually, he gave up, turning on the radio instead. The hospital was enormous, glass and concrete and impossible to comprehend. Grace paid the driver, stood on the sidewalk with her small bag, and tried to make herself move toward the entrance. People rushed past her. Ambulances wailed. Someone was crying in the parking lot. She forced herself to walk inside. The lobby was chaos. Information desks, gift shops, people in wheelchairs, children crying, doctors in white coats moving with purpose. Signs pointed in every direction. Grace got lost twice trying to find the neurology department, finally stopped at an information desk where a volunteer in a pink vest looked at her referral letter. "4th floor, East Wing," the volunteer said. "Elevators are that way. Would you like me to walk you there?" "No, thank you. I can find it." But she got lost again anyway, ended up in the cardiac wing, then somehow in pediatrics before finally finding the right floor. The neurology department was quieter than the lobby. Muted colors, soft lighting, the kind of careful calm that probably meant a lot of people received bad news here. Grace checked in at the desk, filled out forms with all the blanks she couldn't answer. Name, Grace. Last name, unknown. Date of birth, unknown. Approximate age, late 20s, early 30s. Emergency contact, none. Family medical history, unknown. Previous medical records, none available. The nurse's expression shifted from professional to concerned as she read the intake form. No emergency contact at all? No. No family. None that I know of. Insurance. I have basic national health insurance. That's all. The nurse looked at her for a long moment, and Grace could see the questions forming. But to her credit, she didn't ask them, just made notes in the computer and printed a wristband. The doctor will see you tomorrow morning at 9. You'll need to stay overnight for observation. The waiting area is down the hall if you need to rest before we get you a room. Grace found the waiting area, a long space with uncomfortable plastic chairs and outdated magazines. She sat down, picked up a magazine about travel destinations, and stared at pictures of places she'd never visit now. Her head was starting to hurt again, a dull throb behind her eyes that promised to get worse. She closed her eyes, tried to breathe through it. That's when she heard the laughter, high and bright, and completely out of place in this building full of sickness and fear. Grace's eyes opened. The sound came from a room 3 doors down the hallway. The door was ajar. Through the opening, she could see a small boy sitting in a hospital bed, surrounded by machines and tubes. He was drawing with crayons on a large pad of paper, tongue sticking out slightly in concentration. As if sensing her attention, the boy looked up. Their eyes met across the distance. Grace's heart did something strange. A skip, a flutter, a recognition that made absolutely no sense. She'd never seen this child before. She was certain of that. So why did looking at him feel like remembering something important? The boy smiled at her, gap-toothed and genuine. He raised one small hand and beckoned. Come here. She should stay in the waiting area, should mind her own business, should not get involved with a sick child when she was dying herself. But her feet were already moving, carrying her down the hallway without conscious decision. She stopped at the doorway, suddenly uncertain. Hi, she said. Hi, the boy's smile widened, transforming his pale, tired face into something bright. I'm Minjun. I'm 8 years old. I have bad kidneys. The directness of it startled a laugh out of Grace despite everything. I'm Grace. I'm older than 8. I have a bad brain. Minjun laughed, delighted. That's really silly. Very silly. Do you want to color with me? My dad brings me crayons, but it's more fun with someone else. All the nurses are too busy. Grace hesitated, looked at this small boy hooked to machines, his skin too pale, dark circles under his eyes like bruises. Looked at the hope in his expression, the loneliness barely hidden under cheerfulness. Yes, she said, making a decision that felt bigger than it was. I'd like that very much. She pulled a chair close to the bed, the plastic scraping against the floor. Minjun handed her a green crayon, his fingers small and thin. I'm drawing a dinosaur garden, he explained with complete seriousness. Dinosaurs need gardens too, right? Everyone always shows them eating each other, but maybe they had peaceful times. Maybe they liked flowers. That makes perfect sense to me. They colored in comfortable silence for a while. Minjun hummed tunelessly, some song Grace almost recognized but couldn't quite place. She filled in leaves on a palm tree that was definitely too small for the T-Rex standing beside it, but Minjun didn't seem to mind the scale issues. Why are you here? Minjun asked, eventually, switching to a blue crayon to color what might have been a river or might have been the sky. I need to see a special doctor. Me too. I've been here 3 weeks. He said it matter-of-factly, like it was normal to live in a hospital at 8 years old. My dad visits every night after work. He brings me books and reads all the voices wrong on purpose to make me laugh. He does this really silly voice for the dragon character. That sounds nice. He tries really hard at everything. Sometimes I think he tries too hard, you know, like he's worried if he stops trying for even a second, everything will fall apart. The observation was far too perceptive for an 8-year-old. Grace looked at Minjun with new appreciation. You're very smart. He shrugged. I just pay attention. What about your family? Are they here with you? I don't have any family. Minjun's crayon stopped mid-stroke. He looked up at her with wide, serious eyes. Everyone has someone. Not me. Not even parents. I don't remember them. I don't remember anything from before 3 years ago. Like amnesia. I read about that in a book once. Something like that. Minjun was quiet for a moment, processing this. Then he said, That's really sad. Do you get lonely? The question landed harder than it should have, cutting through all of Grace's careful defenses. She kept coloring, focused on staying inside the lines of a pterodactyl's wing. Yes, she admitted. Sometimes I get very lonely. Me too. When my dad's not here, the nights are the worst. It's too quiet, and the machines make weird sounds, and I start thinking about things I don't want to think about. What kind of things? Like, what if I don't get better? What if my kidneys just stop working, and they can't find anyone to help? What if my dad ends up all alone again? Grace set down her crayon, turned to look at Minjun fully. Again. My mum died when I was little. I don't really remember her. There was an accident and she drowned. Dad said they never even found her body, so it's just been me and him for a long time. And if something happens to me, his voice cracked slightly. Without thinking, Grace reached out and took his small hand in hers. Hey, look at me. Nothing's going to happen to you. You don't know that. You're right, I don't. But I believe it anyway. You're strong. You're brave. You're going to be okay. Minjun squeezed her hand. You're really nice, Miss Grace. I'm glad you came to color with me. I'm glad too. A nurse appeared in the doorway, the same one who'd checked Grace in earlier. Minjun, you need to rest for a bit. Say goodbye to your friend. Will you come back tomorrow? Minjun asked Grace, his grip on her hand tightening slightly. She should say no, should keep her distance, should not let this child get attached to someone who was dying, who'd be gone in months. Yes, she said anyway, the word coming out without permission. I'll come back. Minjun's smile was worth every lie she'd ever told. Grace's appointment the next morning confirmed what she already knew. The neurologist was a different doctor, older than Dr. Park, with gentle hands and eyes that had seen too much death. He showed her more scans, explained the tumor's location with careful precision, used words like inoperable and palliative and quality of life. 6 months, he said finally. Perhaps less. We can manage your pain, make you comfortable, but we cannot cure you. I'm very sorry. I understand. Thank you for your honesty. Do you have family we should contact? Someone who can help care for you as things progress? No, there's no one. The doctor looked at her with something like pity. I'm sorry. That must be very difficult. After the appointment, Grace went straight to Minjun's room. He was awake, sitting up in bed with a book open on his lap. His face lit up when he saw her in the doorway. You came back. You actually came back. I said I would. I know, but sometimes people say things they don't mean, adults especially. I meant it. She pulled the chair close to his bed again, settling into what was already becoming a familiar routine. What are you reading? It's about a tiger who wants to be a house cat. He's tired of being scary and living in the jungle. He just wants to sleep on a soft bed and have someone pet him. Can I read it with you? Will you do the voices? I can try. She read to him for an hour, making up silly voices for the tiger, and the house cat he befriends, and the dog who thinks they're both ridiculous. Minjun laughed at all the right parts, asked her to read certain pages again, corrected her pronunciation when she got the tiger's growl wrong. No, it has to be deeper, like this, he demonstrated, and Grace tried to match it, and they both ended up laughing. A different nurse came by with medication. Minjuan made a face but took the pills without complaint. You're very good at that, Grace observed. At what? Being brave. I don't feel brave. I feel scared most of the time. That's what being brave is, being scared and doing it anyway. Minjun considered this. Will you be here tomorrow too? If you want me to be, I do. Grace came back the next day, and the day after that, and the day after that. It became a routine, the only thing that felt purposeful since her diagnosis. She'd wake in her hospital room, take her medication, eat the terrible hospital breakfast, and then go straight to Minjun's room. Sometimes she'd arrive to find him sleeping, and she'd sit quietly and read her own book until he woke. Other times he'd be awake and waiting, impatient for her to arrive. They colored. They read stories. They talked about everything and nothing. Minjun told her about his school, his friends, the teacher who let him bring his pet turtle for show and tell once. He talked about his father, with a mixture of love and worry that broke Grace's heart. He never talks about my mum, Minjun said one afternoon. I ask sometimes, and he'll tell me little things, like she was smart and kind, and she sang to me when I was a baby. But then he gets this look on his face like it hurts too much to remember, so I stop asking. Maybe it does hurt too much. Do you think people who die can see us? Like from heaven or wherever? Grace touched her locket, the question stirring something in her chest. I don't know. Maybe. I hope so. I hope my mom knows my dad is doing his best. I hope she's proud of him. I'm sure she is, sweetheart. Minjun pulled out his phone, scrolled through photos with practiced ease. This was her. Dad keeps all these pictures. Sometimes I catch him looking at them late at night. He showed Grace the screen. A woman with warm brown eyes and a bright smile, her skin darker than the average Korean woman, her hair natural and beautiful. She looked happy, alive, loved. Grace stared at the photo, something stirring in the back of her mind. Not quite memory, but an echo, a whisper. The curve of the woman's smile felt familiar, in a way she couldn't explain. You okay, Miss Grace? She blinked, realized she'd been staring too long. Yes, sorry. She was very beautiful. Dad says I have her smile, and her eyes, kind of. Do you think I look like her? Grace studied Minjun's face, then looked at the photo again. Yes, I think you do. You kind of look like her too. Same face shape or something. And your skin is the same color. The observation sent a strange chill down Grace's spine. Do I? Yeah, it's nice. Makes me feel like... He paused, seeming embarrassed. Never mind. That's silly. Tell me. Makes me feel like maybe she sent you to keep me company while I'm stuck here. Grace's throat tightened unexpectedly. She reached out and smoothed Minjun's hair back from his forehead, the gesture automatic and tender. That's not silly at all. 2 weeks passed like this. Grace's headaches worsened, despite the medication. She started getting nosebleeds again, brief moments of dizziness that forced her to sit down suddenly. The doctors adjusted her medication, warned her the seizures would likely return soon. They suggested she consider moving into hospice care, somewhere she could be monitored. She refused. Not yet. Not while Minjun still needed her, because Minjun was getting worse too. His kidney function was dropping faster than the doctors had hoped. They talked about dialysis, about transplant lists, about how difficult it was to find a donor for his rare blood type. Grace was walking past the nurses' station one afternoon when she heard them talking. AB negative, one nurse said, shaking her head. Only 0.6% of the population. We've been searching for months. The father's type doesn't match, and there are no other family members. If we don't find someone soon. She didn't finish the sentence. Didn't have to. Grace stopped walking. AB negative. Her hands started to shake. That afternoon, she couldn't focus during her visit with Minjun. He noticed, of course. He noticed everything. Are you feeling okay? He asked. Just tired. You should rest more. You look pale. I will. I promise. That night, Grace lay in her hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking, AB negative, 0.6% of the population. The next morning, she requested a meeting with her own doctor. What's my blood type? She asked. The doctor checked her chart. AB negative. Quite rare. Why do you ask? Grace's heart started pounding so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. No reason. Just curious. But it wasn't curiosity. It was something bigger, more urgent. A certainty settling over her like fate. She was dying anyway. 6 months, maybe less. 6 months of pain and decline and fading away in a hospital room with no one to mourn her. But Minjun didn't have to die. Minjun could live, could grow up, could have a future. All because of a blood type that only 0.6% of people shared. Grace spent the whole day thinking about it, weighing the decision, examining it from every angle. But deep down, she already knew what she was going to do, had known from the moment she'd heard those words. AB negative. The next morning, she requested a meeting with Minjun's nephrologist. Dr. Han was a tired-looking man in his 50s, with grey hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He listened as Grace explained what she wanted. You want to donate your kidney to Minjun Choi? Yes. You understand you have a terminal brain tumor. I'm very aware. The surgery would be risky for someone in your condition. Recovery would be difficult. The stress on your body might even accelerate your decline. I don't have much time either way, Dr. Han. But Minjun does. If my kidney can give him years instead of months, then what happens to me doesn't matter. Dr. Han studied her for a long moment. You've known this child for 2 weeks. I know. Why would you do this? Grace touched the locket at her throat, tried to find words for something she didn't fully understand herself. I don't know how to explain it. From the moment I saw him, I felt something. Like recognition. Like I was supposed to find him. I've spent 3 years not knowing who I am, Dr. Han. Not knowing if my life has any meaning. But this, saving him, this feels right. This feels like the only thing that's mattered since I woke up on that beach. Does Minjun know you're terminal? No. And I don't want him to. He's a child. He doesn't need to carry the weight of my death. He just needs to live. His father will have to approve the surgery. We can't do it without his consent. Then ask him. But please, keep my identity confidential. I don't want thanks. I don't want gratitude or guilt or any of it. I just want to know that boy gets to grow up. Dr. Han was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded slowly. Let me run the compatibility tests. If you're a match, I'll speak to Mr. Choi. The tests took 3 days. 3 days during which Grace visited Minjun every afternoon, reading him stories, bringing him small gifts from the hospital gift shop, balloons that said, "Get well soon," juice boxes in flavors he'd never tried, a stuffed tiger to match the one from his favorite book. "You spoil me," Minjun said, hugging the tiger close. "Someone should. My dad does. But you're different. You're here during the day. It's nice not to be alone all the time. I like being here with you. Really. It's not boring. Not even a little bit." On the 4th day, Dr. Han found her in the waiting area. "You're a perfect match," he said simply. "Perfect tissue compatibility. It's almost miraculous." Grace let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "When can we do the surgery?" "I've spoken to Mr. Choi. Explained that we have an anonymous donor willing to help. He's agreed to accept the kidney. The surgery is scheduled for Friday, 3 days from now." "He doesn't know it's me?" "No, and per your request, he won't. Though I should warn you, Mr. Choi is not a man who likes mysteries. He has significant resources, connections. He may try to discover your identity." "Let him try. As long as Minjun is safe, nothing else matters." "Grace." Dr. Han's voice softened. "Are you sure about this? Once we do the surgery, there's no going back. I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Friday came too quickly, and not fast enough. Grace visited Minjun Thursday evening, their last visit before everything changed. She'd brought him a new book, this one about a boy who built a rocket to the moon from pieces he found in a junkyard. "Will you read it to me?" Minjun asked, eyes bright with interest. "Of course." They made it halfway through before Minjun interrupted. "Miss Grace, can I ask you something?" "Anything. Are you scared? Being sick, I mean." Grace set the book down in her lap, considered how to answer honestly. "Sometimes, yes. Me too. I get scared a lot, especially at night. I try not to show my dad because he worries enough already, but sometimes I'm really, really scared." "That's okay, Minjun. Being scared doesn't mean you're not brave. What if I die like my mum did? What if my dad ends up all alone?" The words broke something in Grace's chest, shattered whatever wall she'd been keeping between herself and this child. She set the book aside completely and took his small hand in both of hers. "Listen to me, sweetheart. You're not going to die. Do you understand? You're going to get better. You're going to go home. You're going to grow up and go to school and make your father proud and have a whole beautiful life ahead of you." "You can't know that." "I can. I promise you, Minjun. You're going to be okay." He searched her face, looking for the lie, but she kept her expression steady. Let him see only certainty, only love. "Okay," he said finally, trusting her completely. "I believe you." She read him the rest of the book, her voice steady even though her heart was breaking. When he started to yawn, she closed the book and smoothed his hair back from his forehead. "Get some rest. I'll see you soon. Promise?" "Promise." She hugged him goodbye, holding on a little longer than necessary, memorizing the weight of him, the little boy smell of his hair, the steadiness of his heartbeat against hers. "You're the best friend I've ever had, Miss Grace." You're pretty special yourself, Minjun." She left before he could see her cry. The surgery was scheduled for 6 in the morning. Grace was prepped at 5, nurses moving efficiently around her, explaining procedures she barely listened to. The anesthesiologist was cheerful, trying to put her at ease, not realizing she was already at peace. They wheeled her to the operating room while it was still dark outside. The ceiling tiles passed overhead, fluorescent lights flickering. Somewhere in another operating room, Minjun was being prepared too. "Count backwards from 10, the anesthesiologist said. 10, Grace whispered. 9, 8. Her last conscious thought was of Minjun's smile. The surgery took 5 hours. Both operating rooms ran simultaneously, orchestrated carefully. Kidney removed from Grace's body with precision, transported across the hall, transplanted into Minjun's small frame, blood flowing, cells connecting, life continuing. When Grace woke in recovery, pain hit her like a wave, sharp and burning in her side, radiating through her entire body. She tried to move, gasped, gave up. A nurse appeared immediately. "Try not to move. You're going to be sore for a while." "How is he?" Grace managed through gritted teeth. "The boy." The nurse smiled. "The recipient is stable. The kidney is functioning perfectly. You saved his life." Grace closed her eyes, tears sliding down her temples. Good. That was all that mattered. She drifted in and out of consciousness for hours. Pain medication made everything fuzzy, dreamlike. Voices came and went. Machines beeped their steady rhythms. Time passed strangely, compressed and expanded. When she woke fully, it was evening. The room was dim, just one small light glowing above the door. Grace tried to sit up, gasped at the pain, gave up and lay still. That's when she heard footsteps in the hallway. Fast, purposeful, angry. The door to her room slammed open hard enough to bounce off the wall. A man stood silhouetted in the doorway, breathing hard, hands clenched into fists at his sides. Even in shadow, she could see the tension in his shoulders, the rigid way he held himself. "Who are you?" he demanded. Grace blinked, confused and still half-drugged. "I'm sorry. Visiting hours are over, I think. You have the wrong room." He stepped into the light. Grace's breath caught. She'd never seen this man before in her life. She was absolutely certain of that. His face was unfamiliar, his voice unknown. So why did every cell in her body scream recognition? Why did looking at him feel like drowning and surfacing at the same time? The man went completely still, staring at her like he'd seen a ghost, like the dead had risen right in front of him. "No," he whispered, the word barely audible. "No, this isn't possible." "I'm sorry. Do we know each other?" He moved closer, each step slow and careful, like approaching something that might disappear if he moved too quickly. In the better light, she could see his face clearly now. Strong jaw, dark eyes that were currently wide with shock. Features she'd never seen before but somehow knew. "Ajali," he said, and his voice cracked on the name. The name hit her like a physical blow. Her heart monitor started beeping faster, the sound shrill in the quiet room. "That's not my name. My name is Grace." No. He was beside her bed now, close enough that she could see he was trembling. "Your name is Ajali Mensa. You're my wife. You died 3 years ago. I think you're confused. I'm not married. I don't know you. Look at me." His voice was desperate now. "Really look at me and tell me you don't know me." She looked, studied his face, the lines around his eyes, the shape of his mouth, the way his hair fell across his forehead. Nothing. Blank. Empty. Except her heart was racing. Except her hands were shaking. Except something deep in her chest was screaming, "Yes. Yes, I know you." "I don't," she started. Then the pain hit, sharp and blinding, stabbing through her skull like a knife. Images flashed behind her eyes, too fast to understand. Water, screaming, hands reaching through darkness, a car sinking, a baby crying, this man's face, younger, smiling, saying "I love you." The heart monitor went wild, alarms shrieking. "What did you do to me?" Grace gasped, clutching her head. "Nothing. Please, Ajali, please. That's not my name." But even as she said it, something whispered, "Liar, liar, liar." The man reached for her hand. It's me. It's Jaewon. We met in a bookstore. We got married. We had a son. The moment his skin touched hers, Grace's world exploded. She saw everything at once. Fragments of a life she didn't remember living. A bookstore in Itaewon, rain on the windows, coffee that had gone cold while they talked for hours. This man's smile, younger and lighter. A wedding at a city registry office. A positive pregnancy test. A baby being born. A little boy with dark eyes who looked exactly like Min-jun. Because it was Min-jun. It was her son, her child, her baby. And water. So much water. Pulling her under. Stealing her away. She screamed. Doctors rushed in. Nurses pushed the man back. Sir, you need to leave. That's my wife. Security. Grace thrashed against the hands holding her down. The images still coming. Faster now. Relentless. A lifetime compressed into seconds. 28 years of life. Her parents' faces. Growing up in Seoul. University. Meeting Jaewon. Falling in love. Marriage. Pregnancy. Min-jun's birth. 3 years of happiness. Then headlights. The crash. The water. Drowning. Waking up on a beach with nothing. Ajali, the man, Jaewon, her husband, was fighting against the security guards now. Ajali, please. The needle slid into her IV port, cold spreading through her veins. She heard him calling her name, her real name, the one she'd forgotten, Ajali. The world went dark, but this time she took the memories with her. Grace woke to whispers. Her head felt like it had been split open and poorly reassembled. The light hurt. The sound of her own breathing hurt. Everything hurt. She's waking up, a nurse's voice, professional and calm. Should I get him? Another voice, younger. No. Let her stabilize first. The doctor wants to assess her condition. Grace tried to open her eyes. Managed slits. The hospital room swam into blurry focus. Different room than before. Quieter. More machines. Miss Grace, can you hear me? She tried to speak. Her throat was raw. Yes, you had a severe reaction yesterday. We had to sedate you. How are you feeling? How was she feeling? Grace tried to catalogue the sensations. Pain in her side from the surgery. Pain in her head from the tumor. And something else. Something new and terrifying. Memories that didn't belong to her. Except they did. Confused, she managed. The doctor arrived within minutes, asked her questions. What's your name? Where are you? What year is it? Grace, she answered automatically, then hesitated. Or Ajali, I don't know. The doctor and nurse exchanged glances. Do you remember what happened yesterday? Fragments. A man's face, his voice saying her name, a name she'd never heard before but somehow knew. The feeling of drowning on dry land. A man came. He said he knew me. He's been here all night, waiting outside. He says he's your husband. Husband. The word felt foreign and familiar at the same time. I don't remember having a husband. Would you like to see him? He's very insistent, but we won't allow it unless you consent. Grace touched the locket at her throat. 3 years she'd worn it. 3 years she'd wondered about the faces worn away by water. Yes, she whispered. Let him in. The nurse left, returned 2 minutes later with the man from yesterday. He looked terrible. Eyes red-rimmed and bloodshot. Hair disheveled. Same clothes as yesterday, wrinkled now. He stopped just inside the doorway, like he was afraid to come closer, afraid she might disappear. Hi, he said, voice rough. Hi. They stared at each other across the small room. Grace studied his face, trying to match it to the fragments in her head. Bookstore. Rain. Coffee. This face. Younger. Laughing at something she'd said. Your name is Jaewon, she said slowly. His breath caught. Yes. We met in a bookstore in Itaewon. You reached for the same book I did. Neruda. Poetry. We had coffee. 2 cups each. The memories were there. Fuzzy and incomplete. Like looking through frosted glass. You asked me to dinner. Jaewon moved closer. Pulled a chair to her bedside. Sat down like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. You remember? I don't know. Maybe. It feels like remembering someone else's life. It's your life. Ajali. Grace, she corrected automatically. Your name is Ajali Mensah. You were born in Accra, but raised in Seoul, from 6 months old. Your father worked for the Ghanaian embassy. You studied accounting at Korea University. We got married when you were 25. We had a son, Minjun. The memory hit her like a wave, a baby in her arms, tiny and perfect, and hers. Minjun, she breathed. Yes, Jaewon's voice broke. He's here, in this hospital. You gave him your kidney. I didn't know. I didn't know he was mine. But you saved him anyway. Grace pressed her palms against her eyes. The memories were coming faster now, sharper. A small apartment in Mapo, Jaewon cooking breakfast, burning the toast, Minjun's first steps, his first word, which had been dada, and made her pretend to be offended, while Jaewon laughed. There was an accident, she said. A car. We went into the water. Jaewon nodded, unable to speak. You pulled Minjun out first. I came back for you. I swear I came back. But the current took you. I searched for hours, days. They said you drowned. I washed up on Jeju. An old woman found me. I was in a coma for a year. When I woke up, I didn't remember anything. 3 years, Jaewon said, the words barely audible. You've been alive for 3 years and I didn't know. I didn't know either. They sat in silence. The machines beeped. Outside the room, the hospital continued its endless rhythm of crisis and care. Can I see him? Grace asked finally. Minjun, can I see my son? Jaewon's expression shifted, something like fear crossing his face. He doesn't know yet. About you. He knows Miss Grace donated a kidney. He doesn't know Miss Grace is his mother. We should tell him. Are you sure? If you're not certain, if the memories aren't fully back, I'm sure. And she was. Regardless of what she remembered or didn't remember, she knew that little boy was hers, had known it from the first moment their eyes met. I want to see my son. They brought Minjun in a wheelchair, still too weak to walk far. He looked better than yesterday, more color in his cheeks, eyes brighter. When he saw Grace in the bed, his face lit up. Miss Grace, they said you were sick. Are you okay? I'm okay, sweetheart. How are you feeling? Better. So much better. The doctor said the new kidney is working perfectly. He said I'm going to be able to go home soon. His smile was radiant. Thank you for visiting me even though you're sick too. The Jaewon wheeled Minjun closer to the bed. His hands were shaking. Minjun, he started, then stopped, looked at Grace helplessly. She reached out, took Minjun's small hand in hers. Sweetheart, I need to tell you something. It's going to sound very strange. Okay. You know how your dad told you that I donated my kidney to you? Minjun nodded, suddenly serious. And you know how you said I look like your mum? Another nod, slower this time. His eyes were getting wider. There's a reason for that. Grace's voice shook. Minjun, I am your mum. The boy went very still, stared at her, looked at Jaewon, who nodded. But you died, Minjun whispered. Dad said you drowned. They thought I did. I thought I did too, but I survived. I just didn't remember who I was. I didn't remember you, or your father, or anything about my life before. You didn't remember me. The hurt in his voice broke her heart. Not in my mind, no, but here. She pressed his hand to her chest, over her heart. I remembered you here. From the very first moment I saw you, something in me knew. That's why I couldn't stay away. That's why I wanted to save you. Minjun's eyes filled with tears. You came back. I came back. Are you going to stay? Are you going to come home? Grace looked at Jaewon, saw the same desperate hope in his eyes. Yes, baby. I'm going to come home. Minjun launched himself from the wheelchair into her arms, and Grace held him despite the pain in her side, despite the weakness in her body, held him and cried and felt something fundamental slot back into place. Over his head, she met Jaewon's eyes. He was crying too, silent tears streaming down his face. This was her family, her life, everything she'd forgotten. And she was dying. The thought settled over her like a shadow, but she pushed it away. Not yet. She had time. Not much, but enough. It had to be enough. They kept her in the hospital for another week. monitoring both her recovery from surgery and her deteriorating neurological condition. Jae-won came every day, sometimes sitting in silence, sometimes talking about their life together, filling in the gaps her memory couldn't reach. "You proposed to me," he said one afternoon. "I was too scared to ask, so you did it first." "What did I say?" "You said, 'So are we doing this or not?' Like you were talking about ordering pizza instead of getting married." Grace laughed, and it hurt her incision, but she didn't care. "That sounds like something I'd do. We got married at the city registry office. Your dress was yellow. The witnesses were two women from the convenience store who had no idea who we were." "Tell me about when Min-jun was born." Jae-won's expression softened. "You were in labor for 14 hours. You threatened to kill me at least 6 times. When they finally put him in your arms, the first thing you said was, 'He has your eyes.' And I said, 'He has your strength.' And you laughed and said he'd need it with me as a father. Was I happy? You were radiant. I'd never seen anyone so happy." Grace closed her eyes, trying to pull the memory forward, could almost feel it. The weight of a newborn, the overwhelming love, the certainty that everything had changed forever. "I want to go home," she said. "Soon. The doctors want to make sure you're stable first." Jae-won. She opened her eyes, looked at him directly. "I'm dying. We both know it. I'd rather spend whatever time I have left living, not stuck in a hospital bed." His jaw tightened. Don't what? Talk about dying. We just got you back. That doesn't change reality." "I know." He scrubbed his hands over his face. "I know. But can we pretend for a little while? Can we just pretend everything's going to be okay?" "Okay," she agreed softly. "We can pretend." Min-jun visited every day too, wheeled in by nurses who bent the rules about visiting hours. He'd bring his drawings, his books, stories about the other kids on the pediatric floor. Sometimes he'd fall asleep in the chair beside her bed, and Grace would watch him breathe and marvel that this perfect creature was hers. "Does he know?" she asked Jae-won one evening, after Min-jun had been taken back to his room. "About the tumor?" "No, I haven't told him. We'll need to, eventually." "I know, just not yet. Let him be happy for a little while." One afternoon, Jae-won brought her clothes from home. Real clothes, not hospital gowns. A soft blue dress she didn't remember buying, but her hands recognized the fabric. "The doctors are releasing you tomorrow," he said. "Both of you. Min-jun's kidney function is excellent. You're stable enough to continue treatment as an outpatient. We're going home." "We're going home." The apartment in Mapo looked exactly as Grace had left it 3 years ago, though she didn't remember leaving it. Jae-won had kept everything the same. Her books on the shelves, her mug in the kitchen cabinet, photos on the walls of a life she'd lived but forgotten. Min-jun ran from room to room, energized by being out of the hospital. "Mum, look! This was your favorite chair, and here's where we took that picture on my 4th birthday. Mum." He'd started calling her that, tentatively at first, then with growing confidence. Each time he said it, something in Grace's chest tightened with love and grief. She walked through the apartment slowly, touching things. The couch where they'd watched movies, the kitchen where Jae-won had learned to cook, Min-jun's room with his small bed and shelves full of toys. Their bedroom. She stopped in the doorway. Jae-won appeared behind her. "I can sleep on the couch," he offered. "I don't want you to feel uncomfortable." "No." Grace stepped inside. The bed was neatly made. Her side table still had a book on it, bookmark halfway through. "This is our room, our home." That night, she lay in bed beside her husband, the shape of him familiar and strange at the same time. He kept a careful distance, not touching, barely breathing. "Jae-won?" "Yes?" "You can come closer. I won't break." He shifted toward her. His hand found hers in the darkness. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "For what?" "For not finding you sooner, for thinking you were dead, for giving up." "You didn't give up. You took care of our son. You kept him safe. That's what I would have wanted. I should have kept looking. I was lost even to myself. How could you have found me?" He raised her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles gently. "I love you. I never stopped." "I know." And she did. Even if the memories were incomplete, the love was there, fundamental and unchanging. "I love you too." Over the next few weeks, Jaewon took her to places they'd shared, trying to unlock what remained buried. The bookstore in Itaewon where they'd met. Still there, still dusty, still smelling of old paper and possibility. Grace ran her fingers along the poetry shelf. "This one," she said, pulling out the Neruda. "We both reached for this one. You remember?" "I remember your hand on mine. I remember thinking you had kind eyes." They walked to Namsan Tower, the path steep and tiring. Grace had to stop frequently, her body weak from surgery and sickness. Jaewon matched her pace, never rushing, always patient. "We came here the night I proposed," she said, standing at the railing overlooking the city. "No, wait, the night you proposed." "You proposed?" "I did, didn't I?" The memory was clearer now, more solid. "I was tired of waiting for you to be brave." "You were always braver than me." They visited the Han River, the park where they'd had picnics with baby Minjun, the coffee shop near Korea University where she'd studied for her accounting exams, while Jaewon pretended to read the newspaper but really just watched her. Each place brought fragments back, pieces of a life assembling themselves slowly. But the full break came somewhere unexpected. They'd taken Minjun for a follow-up appointment. Grace was having her own scans done. Walking through the hospital corridors, they passed the maternity ward. Through the window, a woman was being wheeled past, newborn baby in her arms, her face exhausted and glowing, her husband walking beside her, crying and laughing at the same time. Grace stopped walking. Saw herself in that moment, younger, exhausted, radiant, baby Minjun in her arms, impossibly tiny and perfect. Jaewon beside her, tears streaming down his face. Her voice, hoarse from screaming, "He has your eyes." His voice, thick with emotion, "He has your strength." The nurse taking their photo. The overwhelming certainty that nothing would ever be the same, that she'd been broken open and remade into something entirely new. The love, the terrifying, all-consuming love. Then more, faster. Minjun's first smile, first word, first steps, reading him stories before bed. Jaewon cooking breakfast, the smoke alarm going off. Dancing in the kitchen to songs on the radio. The three of them on the couch, watching cartoons. Minjun's 5th birthday party, just the three of them, chocolate cake and candles. The dinner at Jaewon's father's house. The tension, the threat, the drive home. Jaewon's hands tight on the wheel. We should leave Seoul. The headlights behind them. The impact. Water pouring in. Minjun screaming. Jaewon pulling him free. Coming back for her. His hand in the darkness. Losing his grip. Sinking. Drowning. Dying. Grace's knees gave out. She collapsed in the hospital corridor, the memories crashing over her like waves, drowning her all over again. But this time, she surfaced with everything intact. Jaewon caught her, held her, agilely, "I've got you." "I remember," she gasped. "I remember everything." Minjun was crying, frightened by her collapse. She reached for him, pulled both of them close. "I remember," she said again, and this time it wasn't terror. It was grief and joy and recognition. "I remember all of it." She was Ajali Mensah, 28 years old, wife, mother, accountant, woman who'd loved poetry and terrible coffee and her small family more than anything. Woman who'd drowned and forgotten and found her way back. They took her home, not to the hospital, home. She had 3 months, the doctors said, maybe 4 if she was lucky. She chose not to spend them being careful. They had breakfast together every morning. Jaewon had finally learned to cook properly, and Ajali teased him about it. "Only took you 3 years and my death to figure out how to make decent eggs." I had motivation before. Now I have desperation. They took Minjun to the park, to the zoo, to the aquarium, made up for lost time even though they all knew time was running out. Ajali helped with homework, read bedtime stories with all the voices, watched her son grow stronger every day, his color returning, his energy boundless. "The kidneys working perfectly," the doctor said at his follow-up. "He's thriving." At night, she lay in bed with Jaewon, talking in the darkness. "I'm scared," she admitted one night. Of dying. Of leaving you both again. Of Minjun growing up without me. Of you being alone. Jaewon held her closer. We'll be okay. You gave us this time. You gave Minjun his life back. That's enough. It doesn't feel like enough. It never would be, but it's what we have. She started writing letters. For Minjun's future birthdays, his graduation, his wedding day, his first heartbreak, instructions on how to tie a tie, what to look for in a partner, how to be brave when everything felt impossible. For Jaewon, she wrote different things. Forgiveness for the accident that wasn't his fault. Permission to move on, to love again, to not carry guilt forever. Gratitude for the years they'd had, the life they'd built, the son they'd made together. The headaches got worse. The seizures came back. Her hands started shaking, making it hard to write, hard to hold chopsticks, hard to do the small things she'd taken for granted. Minjun noticed, of course. He noticed everything. "Mum, are you getting sicker?" They were sitting in his room, surrounded by his drawings. Ajale had been trying to help him color, but her hands wouldn't cooperate. She set down the crayon. "Yes, baby, I am." "Are you going to die again?" The question, so direct and terrifying, deserved an honest answer. "Yes." "When?" "I don't know exactly. Soon." Minjun's eyes filled with tears. "But you just came back." "I know. It's not fair." "No, it's not. I don't want you to go." Ajali pulled him into her arms, held him while he cried. "I don't want to go either, but I'm so grateful I got to come back at all. So grateful I got to know you, really know you. So grateful for every single day we've had. Will you be with Mum? The first you." It took her a moment to understand. "You mean will I be in heaven, or wherever people go?" He nodded against her chest. "I think so. I think I'll be everywhere you need me to be. In the memories, in the things I've taught you, in the way your dad makes breakfast, and in the stories we read together. I'll be there. Promise?" "I promise." She made it to Minjun's 9th birthday, baked a lopsided cake with Jaewon's help, sang off-key while Minjun blew out the candles, gave him a present she'd wrapped herself, hands shaking so badly Jaewon had to help. A book. The one about the tiger who wanted to be a house cat. "This was the first story I read to you," she said, "when I was still Miss Grace, and you were just this little boy I loved for reasons I didn't understand." Minjun hugged her carefully, aware of how fragile she'd become. "Thank you, Mum." 2 weeks later, she couldn't get out of bed. The pain was constant now, despite the medication. Her vision blurred. Speaking took effort. Everything took effort. Jaewon moved their bed into the living room so she could see the windows, see the light. Minjun did his homework beside her, chattering about school, about his friends, normal things that made her feel tethered to the world. "I left letters," she told Jaewon one night. Her voice was barely a whisper now, "in the blue box in the closet. For both of you. For later." Ajele. "It's okay. I'm ready." "I'm not." She tried to smile. "You will be, eventually. Take care of our son. Let him be happy. Don't let him carry this as weight. I love you. I love you too. Both of you. So much." She died quietly one morning in early autumn, slipping away in her sleep beside the husband who'd lost her twice. The sunrise was beautiful, golden light filling the apartment, touching her still face with warmth. Jaewon felt it the moment she left. The change in the air, the stillness. "No," he whispered. "No, please." But she was gone. Minjun came running at his father's cry, stopped in the doorway, saw his mother's peaceful face, his father's grief. "Dad?" Jaewon held out his arm. Minjun climbed onto the bed, and they held her together, father and son, crying for the woman who'd come back from the sea twice, just to save them both. The funeral was small, just a few people at a cemetery overlooking the ocean. Halmoni came from Jeju, standing silent and strong. A few co-workers from Ajali's old job, Mr. Kang with flowers, the nurses who'd cared for her. The casket was lowered into the ground. Final, real. Minjun held his father's hand, watching the earth swallow his mother. "Dad? Yes? Do you think she's in the water again, like before?" Jaewon looked at the sea in the distance, waves catching the light. "No, I think she's done traveling. She's home now. With us. Always with us. That night, they opened the blue box. Inside, letters organized by date and occasion. Minjun's were tied with yellow ribbon. Jaewon's with blue. They opened the first one together. My loves, it began. If you're reading this, I'm gone. But I need you to know, I'm not sorry. Not for coming back. Not for the time we had. Not for any of it. You were worth every moment. You are worth everything. Jaewon's hands shook so badly, Minjun had to take the letter and keep reading. Minjun, my beautiful boy, you were the first face I remembered. Before I knew your name, before I knew you were mine, I knew I loved you. That's how strong our connection is. Stronger than memory, stronger than death. Some things are deeper than the mind can hold. They live in the bones, in the blood, in the heart that keeps beating even when everything else stops. You are my heart. You always were. You always will be. Minjun's voice broke. Jaewon took over. Jaewon, my love, thank you for bringing me home. Thank you for loving me twice. For not giving up even when I didn't recognize you. For fighting to help me remember. Take care of our son. And when you're ready, don't be afraid to love again. You have so much love to give. Don't let it die with me. There was more. Pages of it. But they couldn't read anymore. Just held each other and cried and held on to the words she'd left behind. Outside, autumn wind rustled the leaves. The city continued its endless rhythm. Life went on, the way it always did, indifferent and relentless. But in the small apartment in Mapo, two boys mourned the woman who'd loved them enough to come back from death itself. And somewhere, maybe in the water or the wind or the space between heartbeats, Ajali Mensah smiled. She'd kept her promise. She'd come home. She'd loved them with everything she had. And in the end, that was enough.